there's a lot of things that I've written about in my books that other people have written about in different ways. But what I'm adding is my perspective, my experience, my unique view on this and how I see it apply. I had this conversation long before AI about this idea of like my newsletter. Am I just saying things that other people have said? And the answer is like, yes, but also no one knows this the way that you do it. No one comes at it from the same perspective. No one has the same background or experience. So it's unique in that regard. And so when you remove that piece, if you're just feeding the idea or the concepts in and AI fills in the blanks, then yeah, I think you're missing that unique take on the idea and the application and, examples that you would use to tell the story.
I'm joined again in this episode by Rob Hatch. Rob is an author and executive coach. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about AI and what it means specifically for his business and how somebody like him that is doing authorship and executive coaching can use AI, but still maintain their own authenticity and creativity. Hi, Rob. Welcome back.
Thanks. Glad to be back.
So I'm joined with Rob Hatch today, who's an author and executive coach. And Rob, I wanted to ask you about AI.
Cool. This will be an interesting conversation. Maybe. It might be a short conversation, but we'll see.
And yeah, we're laughing because I wouldn't consider you to be a quote unquote AI expert. And nor do I consider myself to be an AI expert. But I think, you know what? The reason I want to talk to you about AI is because you're a people expert. And it's our relationship with AI that I want to talk with you about. And as an executive coach, this is definitely going to be something that is going to come up either directly or indirectly as you're coaching people. So let's just preface it by saying that, or just asking the question, I guess, what is your take of the state of AI right now? Do you use AI yourself? And what are your thoughts in general about where we're at this point in time?
My broadest take on it is that it's not yet, and this is a sort of a borrowed take, but it's not really doing or fulfilling all the promises that people have hyped it up to do yet. And I think there's a lot of discovery. I have concerns about what it does, the information that it uses. I had learned that some of my books were part of that, the scraping. So my intellectual property has been grabbed and used by AI, and in terms of
without your permission, I'm guessing.
Without my permission, right?
Yep.
So it's just so many problems. That said, it's really exciting, and it's not that I don't use it or haven't used it. The way in which I use it is to kind of help me reflect and think, and maybe kind of give me direction around coalescing ideas, testing out. We talked the last time about reflection. I think it can be a very useful reflection tool. I also think it can help to sort of test ideas. So, for example, if I believed that there was alignment between two concepts, I might sort of test that out and, use AI to kind of really help me think through the ways in which these ideas might, it's not just in my head that I'm drawing these conclusions.
Right.
That's why it's a sort of validation tool in that regard. And like, oh no, I'm onto something here. And that's the way I've used it for that. I've also used it to tease out ideas from my books my own books that I wanted to maybe turn into something more practical, to apply for, like, how might I teach my book, for example, and really thinking about, so it helps me, surprise, surprise, to frame up things, and then I can do the work.
Is there anything in doing that was surprising to you, that it's like, wow, this was a lot more in depth, or just the opposite? This like went off on such a weird tangent that I wasn't expecting at all.
Well, aside from the general amazement at some of the technology, I'll give one example. My holy cow moment was Notebook LM. Google has the Notebook LM, and it in that process of having it dig out some of the details for my book or frame up something for my book, there was a beta launch of a conversation, and I clicked on it, and it was basically this 20-minute long podcast about my book where there was discussion about the concepts in the book. And I'm listening to it going, holy, this is amazing. Not only that, I could insert a question and redirect the conversation based on what their thoughts
What?
were on. So along the way,
Wow.
as I'm listening to this, yeah.
Yeah.
So I could say, they might start talking about, learning from failure versus learning from success. And then I could ask, but what does he say
It's
about
like
this?
choose your own adventure.
It's completely,
Yeah. Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
And so I found that was my, wow, this is pretty amazing and useful in that I could, I put myself in this position to be able to think through different questions that people might ask, different takes that people might have in the book, and ways to think about how it could apply to certain situations.
Yeah, I guess my business is more on the technology and cybersecurity side of things. So we do our own private cloud hosting. And so we're playing with different kinds of models and, digging into the technology piece of things. Then I'll have discussions with friends who are completely different industries. I have one friend who's a lawyer who's very reticent about all this kind of stuff, is more conservative in general. And I'm not sure I want to be encouraging to say, hey, you should go in and try it out and see what it's like. But at the same time, I see for lawyers in particular, this is going to be very disruptive for them. So it's going to be disruptive for everybody, I'm sure, in some capacity.
For coaches as well. I mean,
yeah,
this is, and again, I was encouraging a lot of reflection. Again, that is as a tool to help you think through some of the things that you're going through. It's pretty cool. Some of the models that are out there, the way that they've been framed up. There's therapeutic applications. I think caution around that as well. But to the extent that you understand that it's not giving you the best course of action, that it's just helping you think through a problem in the same way that you might talk to a friend, but understanding that that friend is not an expert in your field. Or as I think I shared in the last episode, that, as a coach, I'm asked into a lot of different industries. I am not expert in those. So I'm trying to tease out their expertise and their approach and get to that really quickly. So it's that if you can use it in those ways, I think it can be very helpful.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things, just from a research standpoint too, I think about encouraging people to say, whatever it was that you were going to Google, type that into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever one it is that you're using, and see what the results are from that. Whatever it was you were planning on Googling, just do it in here instead, as just as a research tool, as an experiment, and see what kind of answer you get. And then if you don't like the answer, maybe you should ask a better question. And so I've kind of leaned into that as like, wait a minute, this is really can be powerful in terms of having us ask better questions.
I love that. And I think your approach to gathering data and gathering information, the idea of, well, what if I ask it this way? What if I ask it that way? And seeing how the results change and thinking about which is more effective in getting the best results. And I think most of what I've gleaned from experts in AI or people who purport to be is it really is about how well you frame the question that, so it's thinking through what the prompts are. Did you feed it enough? Were you too general? Were you too specific? There's lots of room for error in the way in which we're asking.
How do you think it's going to impact authors and writers? And, we see already content being created and some of this sort of, I don't know, generic content that might be, company making a blog, stuff that they would have outsourced before, perhaps to content creators. How do you see, it seems to me that AI is going to be naturally taking over those some aspect of content creation.
Yeah, I mean, or people will just utilize AI in doing it, so it will be, either driven by or partially concocted by. I mean, it's baked into every tool that we use, so it's really hard to sort of separate the two. But for the creation of content, my bigger concerns about that are really around the intellectual property issues, really, right? And where's that source coming from? Whether it's, I have a son who's an artist, and he's been really reluctant. For years. One of the ways in which artists sort of promoted themselves was to build their own brand online. But now, in order to use a platform like Instagram, you are signing off saying that it can be, anything that you put on there can be scraped and used for their AI. So now he's in this conundrum of like, I can't promote myself or my art without consenting to its use for AI. And so have to, you're forced into making a decision. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's really created this kind of difficult option that, I don't know, is not very palatable
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think on the flip side of it too is from a content creation, there's a temptation to, lean too heavily on it. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna, let's say I want to write a book. I haven't written a book before, so I want to write a book, but I have some ideas. But the actual process of writing a book, I can imagine, is quite tedious, quite painful, because you have to revise, edit, go over, it's like, I heard somebody, characterize it as just like eating glass, because it's just it's so incredibly painful and tedious to go through that. Be easy to take a shortcut and just say, okay, I have some basic ideas. I'm just going to let AI write the rest. Is it my book? It was my ideas. I did the prompt. It wrote in the details. Is it my book at that point?
If you're asking me directly, or if you're just asking general, if you're asking me
I'm
directly,
asking your opinion. What do you think?
I would say likely not,
Yeah.
because it's been, what I think makes a book or the content interesting. So like, there's a lot of things that I've written about in my books that other people have written about in different ways. But what I'm adding is my perspective, my experience, my unique view on this and how I see it apply. And I had this conversation long before AI with a friend and coach that I've worked with for years and years about this idea of like, my newsletter and just, am I just saying things that other people have said? And the answer is like, yes, but also no one knows this the way that you do it. No one comes at it from the same perspective. No one has the same background or experience. So it's unique in that regard. And so when you remove that piece, if you're just feeding the idea or the concepts in, and AI fills in the blanks, then yeah, I think you're missing that unique take on the idea and the application and, examples that you would use to tell the story. That's the part. And, writing a book can be tedious, but the helpful part, like what I like about what AI can do is maybe to frame up the chapters, to help you take the broader concept and some of the content that you have, and maybe help you think about, all right, so this is the chapter headings that maybe you want to work from. It can help you outline it. So then you break it down, and then editing can be tedious, but it's always nice to have an editor who's doing that work for you and then just telling you what they think, and you say yes or no. You don't have to accept every change that they put in front of you. But the writing part of it, for me, it's always been about just breaking it down. Like I like that frame. I start with, so if it's, most business books are, 60,000 words. So then it's 10 chapters. Okay. So that's 6,000 words a chapter. I'm going to break each chapter into 3 or 4 sections. So 1,500 words per section. And now I've got a much smaller bite that I can write to, and it feels like I can make a lot of progress.
Yeah, I went to a talk by there's a sci-fi author, Neil Stevenson, and he was talking about AI, And, he was on the one hand joking about it because it's like, nobody asked for this, right? We want the robots to do our laundry and cook our food for us so that we have more time to write and do creative things. We don't want the artists to take over doing the writing and creating art. So now we're stuck doing, washing the car or whatever. But I think, attribution is going to be an important thing. And I think, whether there'll be things in the future, legal things, even saying it's like, I solemnly swear I, Glenn Kendall, I, Rob Hatch, wrote this book. Every word I wrote in this book, and I made a conscious choice to put this word before that word, to phrase this in this way. This is my art. This is my creation, to be able to, formulate all of these ideas into sentences, into paragraphs, into chapters, into an entire book. And then, to have that sort of seal of copyright is like, yes, I wrote this by myself. I think that's going to be more of a thing. And I think people are going to want that more later on.
I agree. There will be value to it.
Yeah, yeah. And not to say there wouldn't be a place for, for the flip side of things as well, because there could also be, as you're talking about earlier, having kind of this interactive podcast that you could just inject questions into. I mean, because what an AI is going to be derivative, right? It's only going to be able to create on what was already published and said. So, and then it's just going to riff off of that. It's not going to really create something novel. It's not going to know what the next book is that you're going to write. There was, there's a leadership and coach and author named Simon Sinek, who was talking about his next book. He's writing about friendship, and he's like, I had AI write a book or write in my voice, 6 months ago. And, he's like, yeah, it wasn't very good, And then he said, I just had one. This is a recent podcast he did. I had AI do the same thing just a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, it was shockingly good. It was amazing how good it was. But, and, I said, even write in my voice. But it was still derivative, right?
Yeah.
So he says, now I'm working on a new book about friendship. Simon Sinek. But AI is not going to know what to say in that book. It's not going to know what new ideas, what new perspectives, what new things. It can't write that book for me. Only I can write that book. But I could see a future where there's these, sort of side avatars or side things that are just kind of maybe interactive, maybe things that are authorized by the author to do this sort of side content, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you could, you could envision if I wanted to sort of boil my, I think we ended the last episode with a conversation around, Rob Hatch University or whatnot. So if we were to boil down sort of a certain set of principles, and utilize them, there could be a version of a sort of a coach AI version, avatar version of me that might be inclined to provide ask similar questions, thoughtful responses. Well, not thoughtful, but responses that sound like they're thoughtful from the perspective of how I might approach that, and be rooted in so the approach and principles that I generally apply in my coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's what I get excited about, and I think there is some cool applications for that. But I think there's also going to be, as you were talking about in terms of intellectual property, I think that's going to be a thorny road.
Yeah.
From the other side of things of your content. It's one thing if it's like, yeah, it's Rob Hatch University and it's, it's my content and I have control of it. It's another thing if it's Executive Coach University made by somebody that you don't know who it is or have a relationship with, and they're basically stealing your ideas, but incorporating it into their thing.
And it's going to be so masked at that point that it would be hard to even parse out what was mine or what,
exactly.
Yeah. But I love that take from Simon Sinek, the idea that, he can't, the AI won't be able to write that next book because, again, it's going to lack that perspective. Voice is very different than experience and perspective and articulation of those things. So as good as voice gets, I think it's a really good reminder. I think there are some, I briefly, I think I just signed up for like a beta trial, but I haven't been selected or told that it's available to me yet. But it was on a private AI where I could just feed it my information and it's kind of locked down. No one else has access to it. So that idea appealed to me, and to think about potentially creating an AI, an avatar for the times in between sessions. What I currently use, and in addition to the one-on-one sessions that I have with people where we're live and we set the time, I now have an asynchronous coaching platform where we can send each other voice messages or video messages or content back and forth in this sort of private little channel. And it's been really fun to just get, little updates. Hey, I had that conversation with that person. Here's how it went. Or I'm about to go into this. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? And so is there some place for an AI version of me or any coach for those in between moments?
Yeah. And I think the answer is probably yes. Yeah. I think obviously, we talked before in the last episode about accountability, and part of what an executive coach is providing is that level of accountability. And I think there is something to a person holding another person accountable. Like, I would feel more accountable if it's like, I know I have to show up to a call to Rob and tell him I either did the things on my list or I didn't do the things on my list, and sort of how things are going, versus I have to check in with the bot.
Yeah. The external thing would, be me on the other end, seeing whether or not you checked in with the bot, right. That's it. I can maybe add some, but it is very, very different. And, to that, kind of weirdly related, idea. One of the things that I have done with my kids, and I've recommended for others who sort of struggle with accountability, is to do live video sessions with someone. Not even a coaching relationship, just a friend. Turn on the video camera, say hi, and get to work. Leave the camera on. And it's called, in the world of ADHD, the term is called body doubling. When you have someone alongside you, to do the mundane tasks, because that's one of the things that a lot of folks with ADHD struggle with. They're very creative. They'd rather spend their time doing things other than folding laundry, for example. But having a friend over can spur that, like, I can sit here with you, even if we're not talking, and I'll get those things done. So, I don't know, to your point, like, if you can't suspend disbelief enough with the bot, that's going to provide that for you. This is just a weird side alternative is, if you struggle with accountability and coaching is not something that is accessible to you in some way, shape, or form, turning on the video camera. My daughter has done it with friends for homework, to focus on homework.
Mm-hmm. Accompaniment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I hadn't heard of that body doubling before. That's really cool.
We used to just do it. I'd say, particularly if she was kind of coming from behind, let's say, on some work that needed to get done and had been set aside, I would just say, I can always find something to work on. So we'll just sit in a room together, side by side, or at a table together, and that the company,
just sort of holding space.
Yeah. And
yeah. You can work on your book.
You don't want to look
she
like
can work on her homework. Yeah.
You're not going to sit there and scroll on your phone.
Yeah. I think communities are going to play a bigger role, both in our personal lives, but also as we're navigating some of these AI spaces. Is that something, do you have a community that's around your coaching that you, like some people have a Discord community? I know you have people that respond, to the newsletters that you send out.
Well, I have been operating a mastermind for many years. Chris Brogan and I operated it together, and have continued to do that, but it's not something that I promote anymore as something that I'm offering. I haven't promoted it in a long time. I might someday again, but the group is really tight. And so we have twice a month, hourly meetings, and we talk about a variety of topics, but because we know each other now and have that, that bond, there's almost a reluctance to want to change that because it's really a special place. So maybe I'll have to create a new one. But I agree that those communities are really helpful, particularly when you can. I think if it can be set up in a way that fosters an open exchange, and you can kind of feel more and more comfortable over time being vulnerable in those spaces and reflecting in those spaces. There's so much wisdom in a group. You don't have to take it all. That's the other thing. With just the ideas that get shared on some of those calls, the notes that I leave with, and I'm technically the one running it and facilitating it, but I benefit so much from the wisdom of that group and their experience. Like, oh, that's a really interesting take. We actually just finished a call, and I had one of the members was facilitating it. And, we did that kind of at the end. We don't always do this, but it was kind of, what are your takeaways from today? And I emphasized at the beginning that we were going to do this, and to kind of, sometimes there's an eye roll when you think about, okay, what's my takeaway, whatever. But what I emphasized was, like, you going back to this, you and your individual take, your perspective, like the benefit of how you heard something to me is incredible. Like, it just could crack something open. I might have been keying off the same piece of information. The way that you're thinking about it just is enough to go, oh, yeah, I need to think about that.
And that's so crucial. And I think the thing I don't say worry about, but I think it's our relationship to these moments. And if you're not present, whether in the community or whatever we'll call it the crucible is that you're going through in order to achieve the takeaway, whether it's a one-on-one coaching session, whatever it is, if you're not present for that moment, how can those epiphanies come? So even if the AI, you had the AI representative, it's like, you know what, I'm busy, I'm going fly fishing. My avatar is going to sit in this mastermind. It will, it'll record the whole session. It'll give me the notes. It'll give me the takeaway at the end. I don't need to be there. I can miss a few. I don't think it'll have the same meaning. So technically, even if it collected the same notes and you just reviewed those notes later, I don't think those moments of aha, those epiphanies, those takeaways, as you say, won't hit home, and it won't create, the impetus to do whatever the next important step is. That's just my take.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think what we miss, like, sure, you're smart enough to review the notes and get the gist, right? But there is something about, if we can accept the premise, for example, for a moment, that you are kind of not the same person from moment to moment. What you're thinking about, what's been on your mind, what experience that you just had that day influences how you show up. So the thing that resonates with you in that moment is not going to be captured or reflected, or, so to your point, the inspiration that you get, the idea that's sparked by what someone says is going to be lost. And even if you listened to the entire, meeting, you're still not, the person that you're listening as then is different than the person you were or would have been a week earlier, in some minor way, but potentially significant. Your mindset's different. And also at that point, like, what are we even doing?
Exactly.
Like, how many avatars have to attend a meeting for us to be like, this is...
I think, it goes back to, we're equating intelligence with value in a way, right? And it's like the value that we bring, like, I'm a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, right? So you have these different qualities: strength, dexterity, intelligence is one of them. So we're talking about intelligence in this capacity. There's also wisdom, right? So the AI may know how to do something, but it sure as hell doesn't know why to do something, or probably even what to do, right? But if you say, okay, I've decided what I want to do, I know why I want to do it, it's never going to know why. I need to now maybe some details of how to do it. Great. Cool. I can leverage you in that case.
Yeah. And I think Yeah, I love that. I love the D&D reference as well. The wisdom piece, or, yeah, Chris and I used to have lots of discussions early on when we were working together, or, Chris Brogan being my business partner way back when, around, we, an idea would be brought to us about a way to, a new business that we could try out, or a new slice of the business. And it was a great idea. It was a great way, people could make money doing this. But was it the way that we should be making money? To your point about my friend that we talked about last time with the hummus and the falafel, like there are lots of different ways to make a living, but there's only a few that that are going to feel and be fulfilled by you, and something that you're going to be able to imbue with your meaning and bring to it. So that idea of whether it's wisdom or experience, or it's that none of that is there in AI, and maybe someday it will be. I have no idea. That frightens
God
me.
help us if it is.
But
Yeah.
but this is, I think, if it's a tool, if it's used thoughtfully, there are going to be lots of bad actors, of course, that are using it poorly. I mean, there's already scams going on that are downright gross, but I think there are some ways to use it thoughtfully and carefully, and in ways that can support you in helping you think and arrive at whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing.
So if you're coaching somebody who's not in the technology field, they're coming at it new, and again, not that you're like the AI guy, not yet at least, but if you're coaching somebody in that way, so there's, you're dealing with it on two levels. There's the objective consequences. It can do this, it can do that. But then there's also the subjective, their relationship to it, their emotions around it, how they're feeling about how those kinds of things. What's some advice you would give as an executive coach to somebody that's new to AI and trying to figure out how they can use it personally, and then with it, how it would impact their business? That might be too general of a question, but
So, I mean, I'll give you a general answer. No, one of the first questions that I would ask is that what's driving this desire to want it to play around with it? Because if you just want to play around with it, there's lots of fun little things that you can do, and we can talk about that.
What's driving it is that they see, all right, this is coming, this is disruptive. I feel like I need to do it. I don't necessarily want to do it, but I feel like I need to start to get ahead of it before I fall behind.
And I would question that feeling. I mean, they may be right. I'm just urging some patience and caution to say, I'm not sure you're right. Let's think about how far behind you might be. You might be behind, but that might not also be a bad thing. But what does behind even mean? And then what are you trying to accomplish by doing it? If you just want to get to know it better, there's nothing wrong with just upskilling yourself in AI, but being really deliberate, not trying to just pursue it on social media, like someone made a post about this and now I feel like crap about myself because I feel like I'm behind, so I better get to figure it out. And then I do this one-off test that really doesn't do anything. Let's come up with a way to approach it thoughtfully, where you can kind of test some things out. Because if you just want to play with it, you can play with it. But if you really think that you might be missing out, if you're right, then let's think about some tests that you could do and play around with. And maybe there's some ideas that get sparked. If I hadn't run through some of my own content through a version of AI, then I wouldn't have. It cracked open some other ideas, basically. So that if that's the usefulness, but the idea of also, what are you trying to accomplish in doing it, in doing this, and that I really try to slow people down when they start feeling like they're behind, or feeling like they're, the FOMO stuff, all of that. Maybe this is okay. Maybe you don't have to. But if you want to, let's do it thoughtfully in small chunks and test some ideas and see what you think. And let's pick one. There's so many models. don't try and discern whether you should use Chat GPT or Claude yet. Let's just pick one and start there. And we're not at the point where you need to figure out which one is best.
Have you got emails from people that you looked at it and you're like, they just copied and pasted this from ChatGPT?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was your reaction when you saw that?
Right. I mean, I get so many emails. I just got one today. I don't know that it was AI, but it was the second one I've gotten for this person this week, where they're like, do you know how powerful writing a book could be for your business? I was like, you didn't even take the time to see that I'm already an author. Like, come on.
Well, that's different. That's just a spam. But I mean, somebody that you know that you're having a communication with, and they send you an email, and you're just like, dude.
No, I don't think I've seen.
You haven't seen that? I've seen a couple instances of that where it's just like, and immediately it just kind of, the air goes out a little bit, just because I think you didn't even bother to like, and you can tell because kind of like ChatGPT, bolds some text in certain places, and just like certain words, it's just like, you wouldn't use that word. It just feels weird at that point. And it's not that I discount everything, but I definitely, I don't dismiss it, but I do discount everything that comes after it, because I question how much thought they really put into this, whatever it is that they're trying to say.
Saving themselves some time, maybe, or
and they're trying to be thorough too. Is the other thing. I'll see, oh, this is a complex topic, so I want to be sure we got all the different things covered in there. Or maybe it was one of these AI note takers. But I would rather say, hey, by the way, here's a link to the notes that the AI note taker took. Go check it out for yourself. And here's some things that I specifically want to talk about. But I don't know. Yeah,
I would. That take. So I can see being very dismissive of those. Now, I want to bring us back to that topic of authorship. And I think there's a fine line between sort of wholesale saying, hey, ChatGPT, write this response. But Google, of course, has baked into its suggestions. And then there's Grammarly, which uses AI. And, even before AI became what it became, it would suggest certain things. So there's sort of an early version of an AI.
Is this just the next iteration? It's like, but you corrected my spelling. I now don't know how to spell certain words, probably, or I'm dyslexic, or so it just fixes it for me. And you fixed my grammar.
Yep.
Like,
so my question goes back to your certification that I've written this. If an author accepts a reworded sentence, have they written it themselves? Or, because they have to do the accepting. So I would argue, yes, they wrote it, and then it's just the kind of rewording that even a friend might suggest.
Yeah, I guess it depends. If it's, there's different kinds of medium, right? So if it's email, it's kind of, there's text. It's like the lowest quality communication you can receive. Then maybe email is next up from that. It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like a letter, but not really. So we'll accept. We'll give that more grace. If I get maybe a newsletter that you send that you're saying is yours, okay, I would expect that you mostly wrote that. Certainly a book, I would expect it. And then something on the level of a novel, it's like, this better be 100% what you wrote from your own brain.
So my question is more around is Grammarly okay as an editor? Because an editor will do that same process. They will say, hey, this doesn't quite make sense. I'm going to suggest you cut this word out, replace it with this, whatever. They don't get credit for anything in the book when they do that for me. Grammarly is essentially doing the same thing. They're not creating content. I'm not asking them to. So I guess, this is my rationalization of being okay with it. But it is hey, rewrite this whole paragraph. If I prompt it to do that, feels like a very different.
But at what point are you trying to be perfect that, then it's not you anymore. Like I would write newsletters and, you know, I used to do a regular newsletter and I got out of the habit of doing it. Maybe I should start doing that again. But there'd like be just like little, there, it didn't matter how many times I seemed to check because it was before AI. After I sent the newsletter, there's always like a typo or a malprop or something like that, right? So there's just, it became part of the personality of just like these little quirks of things that it was okay that it wasn't perfect. It was actually, in some ways, it was actually more funny and relatable because I get people that would reply to me and saying, you know, oh, I found the typo in this one. It's here, you know, in this week's edition. I'm just like, damn it, they got me again, you know, but that kind of made it fun and made a human connection. And I think, you know,
and so many times,
screw Grammarly, you know, Grammarly, yeah, certain things, but other things just like, I want a split infinitive here and I don't give a crap. I'm going to do it. So thank you for your advice. I will promptly ignore it now.
Yes, so. I dismiss those suggestions all the time. It's like, no, that's how I say that. Like
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to say it that way because that doesn't
that's a Robism. Right. So
right.
TM. Yeah. Don't anyone else. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're both, you know, in agreement that there's a soul that's certainly missing. And you know, again, discounting bad actors for a moment, but like, you know, if people are using it to be helpful in some way, to think through, frame up, you know, consider, narrow down stuff to help them process information, I get that.
I love it in that way. Like it has been such a boon to me to be able to ask it, okay, what if I do this and I take this tech stack and I do this tech stack, and it doesn't always get it right because it doesn't necessarily know all the capabilities of those different things. But manually having to research all of those is a lot more time consuming. And so I feel like I can move quicker, make better decisions, and just sort of piece things together so that then I can move on to making architectural decisions. And then I can just feel more confident that I've like researched what all the different possibilities are, and, you know, and just like, okay, no, and I understand what the trade-offs are here now. So I've just, it's been fantastic from that regard. Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Similarly, you know, again, one of the other ways that I've used it is actually just recently pulling in a lot of old newsletters. So I'll take like a 6-month swath of newsletters and I'll just ask, you know, what are the 5 key takeaways? Or you know, one of the themes of this section of newsletters. And when, you know, one, it's just interesting to see what I've been writing about represented in that way, but also revealing to maybe give me more direction or to think about, like, I want to make a shift here, that I want to start writing about something else like that. And I've broadened the search and I've narrowed the search. You know, I've gone back several years because I have all of them going back for a long time. So that has also just been really helpful to think about more broad stuff rather than, you know, the specific writing stuff that we've been talking about. Like, help me identify, you know, key takeaways, themes from these newsletters.
Yeah, just almost provide like a meta for all of that. It's like, hey, if we were to tag these newsletters individually, how would these tags be arranged? And this is me getting into the geeky data side of things. It's just like, show me a graph of what the topics are, you know, over time, over season, related to how well the New England Patriots are doing in football, whatever. Yeah. He seemed to be really depressed, and he seemed a little moody during these times when New England wasn't doing well. These other times when they were doing great, he was so, you know, the world was all full of possibilities. Yes.
You're absolutely right. Everything's been crap for the last 4 years. Maybe even longer now. But
now you got Vrabel in, right?
Yeah. He's in.
So
we'll see. But
we'll see.
You know, I you know, part of me is just like, what a cool period of time we had to live through as fans. Like, I would imagine Chicago Bulls fans who are around to watch Michael Jordan just go, I mean, you're still going to be a Bulls fan. You're still going to be a Patriots. I'm still going to be a Patriots fan, but holy cow, what a special, cool time. And that, you know, I can never expect that again. I just it was just fun, you know, to watch that and to think about all the, people that like they went up against, like that, unique time in sports, in the NFL. Anyway, we're really getting away from AI, but
Yeah, we are. Well, I'm going to get away even more because now we have, the Seattle Sonics left and went to Oklahoma City. So my friend who lives in New York was asking me, it's like, hey, what do you think about the Oklahoma Thunder? They're looking good. They're gonna, and they now just made it to the NBA finals. What do you think about that? I'm just like, I hate those guys.
Yeah, they're gone.
But it's just like, he's like, well, I really like their roster, and this guy and that guy. So we were just joking and calling them the Zombie Sonics. But
yeah, it's amazing. Like they do need to be, context is everything. I think, like to have them nearby, to feel the emotion of the city, it's hard to kind of keep connected with them when they're so far away.
Yeah, but they're not even them anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
They stole our team. We gave it away. It's our fault, but yeah.
You're still clinging to hope that they'll restore it sometimes.
They will. No, they will. The NBA will expand at some point. We tried to steal a team from I think the Sacramento Kings. We tried to do that, and I'm glad that didn't go through because I wouldn't feel right just knowing we stole someone else's team, knowing how I felt about someone stealing our team. But no, they'll expand at some point, and the universe will be set right again, and there will be a new team. The Seattle Sonics will return someday.
Yeah, the Hartford Whalers are saying the same thing about their hockey team, right? It's not going to happen either. I don't know. Maybe.
But
you have a WNBA team, which is
we do. That's true. I used to take my daughter to that when she was younger. So yeah, it's fun. Well, thank you, Rob. This was great. I should ask what the AI thinks about the probability of the Seattle Sonics returning, to get their objective perspective on it. But this has been great. I love the perspectives that you brought around AI, and I think neither of us knew where this conversation was going to go when we went into it. We're just both like, he wants to talk about AI. It's just like, oh boy, all right, another AI discussion by two guys who really don't know as much as they think they might about it. But I think you came in saying during the beginning, it's just, I don't know why you want to talk to me about AI, but I appreciate you being a sport and talking with me about it. It's been great.
Oh no, it was fun, and I like to make sure that people know when I'm not expert at something up front. So I think it's fun. But again, we have our take on things, and I think figuring out how it can be used in thoughtful ways is
and it's our relationship, right? And you are an expert on people and their relationships to these kinds of technologies, which I think was an important takeaway, because it's not AI per se, it's our relationship as a business leader or executive,
and the motivations that are driving that interest or use. I think
exactly,
absolutely.
Wonderful, Rob. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. It's wonderful connecting with you again. And
it's great to see you.
Look forward to your next newsletter and hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to Data and Confused. I really appreciate you listening. Please go ahead and subscribe as I get this podcast off the ground. I have a lot of amazing guests planned, industry experts and thought leaders from the tech and cybersecurity world. So look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Thank you.